This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. 8 years, 8 fucking years I've been saying that, and today's the day that back in 2017 I assembled my first episode of Splat from the Past and uploaded it. Unfortunately, it took an entire day to be dropped, and I did it on May 15th, 2017. Now, today, for the 8th anniversary, I will be talking to Joanna Gleason. Yes, the Joanna Gleason, daughter of Monty Hall of Let's Make a Deal, Tony Award winner and prolific actress. She became first known to the public as Morgan on Different Strokes and its spin-off Hello Larry. She won her Tony for Into the Woods on Broadway. She was in the classic Woody Allen movies Hannah and Her Sisters, Crimes and Misdemeanors. She was in FX2 playing the old crooked lawyer to Brian Dennehy. She played Dirk Diggler's alcoholic, narcissistic mom in Boogie Nights. And she's done so much more, and we're going to talk about a lot of that stuff today. She just wrote and directed a new movie called The Grotto, which will be screened next Monday, May 19th, at the Regal Union Square in New York City. So if you're in New York City, go out and see The Grotto. I am just so blessed and honored that Joanna and I are finally going to make this happen today. It's been 3 years coming, and no better way to do this than on my 8th anniversary. Also, rest in peace, Robert Benton, co-writer of two of my favorite movies of all time, Bonnie and Clyde and What's Up, Doc. Also, he was the writer and director of Kramer vs. Kramer, Places in the Heart, Nadine, etc. So, it's a sad loss to classic film, but his films will live on forever. So yeah, here is my interview with Joanna Gleason. Well, I don't know if you know this, but today is my 8th anniversary, and I'm so glad we could finally make this happen. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Well, congratulations, and you're welcome.
So let's start with The Grotto, which will be screened next Monday, May 19th, at Regal Union Square in New York City.
Correct, and tickets are going fast, and it would be wonderful if they go on thegrottomovie.com and get tickets.
Absolutely. So what are the origins of the story?
Well, many years ago, I would say it's about at least 10 years ago now, I found, well, it's more than 10 years. Let me go even further back. In my 40s, everything fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
Everything looked good from the outside, career amazing, all this kind of stuff. But marriages had failed, and a big job went south, mm-hmm. and I was in career doldrums, and I was thinking about what do I do next, and I lost everything. And then, of course, everything built back up again over the years, mercifully. And I met Chris and all of that wonderful stuff. But I thought, what happens to a woman in her 40s who has spent her whole life kind of being somebody's something, taking a job that really wasn't her long suit, living with a guy who wouldn't commit to getting married, and something happens where she loses everything. She loses the guy, she loses her house, which was never hers, she loses her job. What happens? How does a woman find herself and find out who she really is and who really are her people?
Mm-hmm.
And I started thinking about that, and I invented this imaginary club, the Grotto, based on the Grotto at Lourdes, France, which is a real place where people go and drink the waters and get healed. And there's a great movie, The Song of Bernadette, a beautiful Oscar-winning movie, The Song of Bernadette, about the little peasant girl who heard the voice of the Virgin Mary and saw a vision and told her to dig in a garbage dump, and up came the water. And, it all is talked about in the movie, but the movie is really about how do you heal?
Mm-hmm.
And who heals you? The people who you thought knew you, or people who see you for who you really are, with no agenda?
It sounds like the lead character really has her hands full.
Yeah, she does, and it's quite a journey for her. There's magic. There's like plausible magic in the movie. There's live music. There's great music in the movie. It's funny, but it's also, it starts off with a tragedy. It starts off with a trauma, and she has to figure out what is grief and what is relief, and where does she go from here, and you know, what is her image of herself? She's starting to be seen in a new way by people she's never thought she'd be, around, and perhaps they see something in her that she never had a chance to see before.
Well, would you say this is a drama or a dramedy?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's so hard to. There's a lot of comedy in it, and it's I'm told, quite moving. People are quite moved at the end. So it's human. It's got all the things we go through.
Hmm. So this was filmed during COVID.
It was, and we filmed in L.A. and we filmed with COVID protocols in place, which adds a great deal of expense to the budget. But we did it, and nobody got sick, and we didn't lose a single day shooting.
That's good. That's good. Was there a lot of paranoia on set because of COVID?
No, because the protocols were in place. We tested those who needed to wear masks wore masks.
That's good.
Nobody was sick. Yeah, yeah, and it was a highly professional crew. It was a union shoot, and everybody knows what they're supposed to do. And there was no panic. No, no, just the annoyance, but also the vigilance of testing and keeping everybody healthy.
That's good. That's good. Now, I'm sure everyone's asking you this, but like back in the day, you directed some TV. Why did you wait so long to direct a movie?
I think it was a question of confidence. I mean, the TV I directed were shows that I actually had been on, so it's easier. You're there, you know everybody, you
Hmm.
know the crew. Diane English, who created Murphy Brown, created Love and War. I asked her, I'm interested in directing, and she said, "Come with me into the editing room. I'll show you how a show is put together." And she gave me an episode to direct, and then she gave me three more to direct of another show. And so it was kind of like playing in your home court,
Hmm.
not that scary. The movie would be like, okay, how do I even begin? And then there's that voice in your head going, well, who do you think you are? You're pretty old. You didn't go to film school. Will anybody let you? As if the anybody is like this monster that just goes, no, you can't do this.
Yeah.
And it was a question of confidence. And it took me a long time before I showed it to my friend Todd Schatz, who's one of my producers. And he said, my producing partner and I, Tim Kirkman, are going to run with this. And it took a few years, but we made it happen.
Wow. And yeah, I mean, it takes age, wisdom, maturity, and all that stuff to, execute a dream like that. Is it a desire that you have to do it again, or is this your only one?
No, no, no. There is another one, and I have one producer already signed on to help me get it rolling. It's a drama. It's a different story, but again about a woman who has to figure out who are her real people in life after a tragedy strikes. It's got a great female relationship, and it's got some wonderful young people in it. So it's entirely different, but that train is slowly leaving the station.
Awesome. Caroline's in the movie, and Michael Nouri. Wow. Do you go like way back with him?
Well, Michael was on Love and War
Oh,
with
that's right.
me, and Caroline and I met doing a Woody Allen film. We met during Crimes and Misdemeanors, and and Amy Aquino I've known forever, and she said yes. And Miguel Sandoval and Lindsay Mendez and Steve Kazee. These are Tony winners, and then there's Susan Sullivan, the great Susan Sullivan,
Hmm.
and then Betsy Brandt, my leading lady. I mean, I kind of knew everybody, and many of them as friends said, "Yeah, I'm in." And I didn't know Dan Bukatinsky well, but he said I'm in. And Betsy I didn't know at all, but she read the script, and I thought, oh gosh, this is my girl.
Are you getting close to distribution for it?
Well, yes. In fact, this showing in New York is part of our distribution deal, and it's going to play for a week in Los Angeles, and then other cities are lined up also um, to have showings of the Grotto all over the place, and then we'll see if a streamer picks it up, after that.
Awesome.
But it will be eventually. I think it will be video on demand. That's on the schedule.
Yeah, it seems like a weird time for independent films. I mean, there's a real crapshoot as to whether or not that they get picked up for distribution to play in theaters or streaming or whatever. It's
No,
a
I
weird
know, I
time.
know. It is. It's always been a weird time for indie films, but here we are. We're premiering in New York and L.A. And so we didn't know that that would happen, and so we feel kind of blessed.
Did you tell me that recently you're doing a play?
I just closed in a play at Manhattan Theater Club called We Had a World by Josh Harmon. It was a gorgeous play, and we just closed on Sunday. Yeah.
It went very well, and
Oh
everyone's
yeah,
raving about it.
yeah, yeah. It was a beautiful, beautiful play.
Yeah, do you ever see yourself retiring from theater?
I may retire from theater in that I don't live in New York City. Chris and I live in Connecticut, so it's hard if you don't live in town,
Yeah.
and you have to commute. And also, 8 shows a week is pretty brutal. Um, the conditions are not always comfortable. I think maybe I'm done with theater, but in terms of writing and directing, and I have a book I'm writing, I think there's a lot more to do. I directed an opera last summer. There's
Hmm.
lots to do that doesn't involve having to do 8 shows a week and not seeing any of your family for months at a time.
Yeah, there's people that they do Broadway in their 80s, and I don't know how they can still memorize their lines and do 8 shows a week. God bless them, because they say
God
that
bless them.
theater is a young person's game after a while.
Well, it is simply in terms of logistics and not even the memory. I had tons of lines. There were only three of us in the play. I had
Hmm.
no problem with that. It is the doing 8 shows a week. It is doing 2 shows on a Wednesday and two on a Saturday. And you just go, this is just friggin' brutal and cruel. And I remember feeling that way even when I was younger.
Hmm.
8 shows a week is just, it's just for the producers. It's just to make money.
So, going back in time, I mean, your dad, Monty Hall, really touched the American pop culture landscape with Let's Make a Deal. And, I
Mhm.
grew up in the 80s and 90s. The show was off the air by that point, but I heard his name everywhere, like in movies and TV shows. People would say, "Who do you think you are, Monty Hall? This ain't Let's Make a Deal." you know?
Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh.
So, your dad,
Yeah, no, he was iconic and a spectacular guy.
but your dad, he was scared of you going into acting, wasn't he?
No, he just gave me the warning. The warning is it's a very unstable career. It's a lot about luck. It's a lot about timing. It's a lot about where you are, who sees you, And he said it's probably not going to be steady. So you should also have Plan B, And Plan B is go to college, get smart, be a smart person who can teach, which I've done, who can write, which I do,
Hmm.
who can direct, which I now am doing. He really was like use more of yourself than just what you think you need for acting.
But when he eventually saw what you could do, I'm sure he was very proud of you.
Oh yeah, he and mom both. It was wonderful. They were fantastic.
Yeah. Did he have a specific career path he would have loved you going into?
No, they never really forced anything on any of us. They never superimposed their hopes and dreams on any of us.
Nice. Do you remember the first movie you ever saw that impacted you as a child?
Well, that's an interesting question. Strangely, one of the first ones was the Song of Bernadette. There's a clip of it even in the Grotto. That was one. West Side Story was another one I saw when I was young,
Oh.
which was great. But I was the kid who was watching the movies from the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
The Barbara Stanwyck movies, the Katharine Hepburn movies, the Irene Dunn comedies with Cary Grant. I mean, those were the movies those were the first movies I saw, but they're also the movies that I found to be more interesting and smarter than a lot of the stuff that was contemporary to, when I was young.
The earliest strong women movies.
Exactly. Exactly.
That is wonderful. Yeah, I love all that stuff too. Barbara Stanwyck in Double Indemnity. She is so fabulous in that.
That and the Lady Eve with Henry Fonda. These are brilliant movies.
Yeah, love them all. So you attended Beverly Hills High?
I did
Were you there?
with
Were you
with the
there?
amazing
Mm-hmm.
with Richard Dreyfuss was there,
Uh-huh.
and Carol Eaton was there, and
Yeah,
Lorraine Newman was there, and Julie Kavner was there, and oh my gosh, there's so many fantastic people came out of that who went into show business.
yeah. Lynn Stewart, God rest her soul, who just passed away. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Carol, yeah, I love Carol. She comes on here once a year to flirt with me and tell showbiz stories.
Oh, she's the greatest. I love her.
Yeah, very, very funny lady. I'm also a Gemini. My birthday is June 6th, just a few days after yours.
Well, happy birthday to us upcoming.
Yeah, and you were born the day before Susie Quattro.
I did not know that.
Yes, same year too.
Mm, cool.
So you originated the role of Monica in I Love My Wife on Broadway, which you won the Theater World Award. Were you nervous at all when that play started?
I wasn't. I think because I had gone to Beverly High and John Ingle was our teacher, I felt so comfortable on stage. And
Hmm.
then when I went to college, Al Freeman at Occidental College, a great director, and has remained a friend all these years, I just felt comfortable on stage. I felt that that was the safest place to be. So the cast was Lenny Baker, may he rest in peace, and Jimmy Naughton, who actually lives up the road from us in Connecticut, and Eileen Graff, with whom I've stayed close all these years. There were just four
Hmm.
of us and four musicians on stage. And it was directed by Gene Saks, the brilliant.
Hmm.
And music was Cy Coleman, the great Cy Coleman. And so we had this tight little band of people doing this very funny show, and I was having a ball.
Yeah, what was Eileen like to work with?
Oh my God, what an angel. What a talented, calm, brilliant, gorgeous angel she is.
Yeah, I think she had done Grease previously on Broadway, so
Yeah,
she had been doing it a while.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, I went on YouTube and I watched part of the Into the Woods PBS special, and
Uh-huh.
oh my God, I could see why you won a Tony. You are fantastic as
Oh,
Baker's wife.
well, thank
Uh,
you, Tommy.
of course. Now, even though Ellen Foley wasn't in this version, I did talk to her a few years ago. She is just a wonderful, eccentric force of nature. Did you find that to
She
be
is.
so when you worked with her?
Oh yeah, yeah. She was adorable and fantastic. She was with us in San Diego.
Hmm. Yeah, she's very funny. Where do you keep your Tony?
It's in a hallway near a guest bedroom and the other kind of wing of the house. It's not something that's front and center. In
Yeah.
all of our posters, all of our show stuff is like off in another part of the house where we don't make shrines to ourselves.
Hmm. But you don't keep it in a box either.
No, it's on a shelf.
Yeah, because some people they put them in shelves. They're just like, or they put them in boxes. They're just like
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So a couple of years ago, I talked to Krista Erickson, and she told me about the hell you all went through on Hello Larry. Something I always was curious about, though. Did you ever question like the romance triangle between Morgan, Larry, and Philip Drummond?
No. I mean, look, it was a silly show.
Yeah.
But it was a great gig for me. I just had my son, Aaron,
Hmm.
and it was good money. And I was back in LA after having done Broadway. Um, a chance to be on a network series. McLean Stevenson was the lead, and he was not happy, and he made everybody else not happy.
Yeah.
Um, but and the girls were young, and they spoiled the girls. It was Kim Richards and um,
And first it was Donna Wilkes, and then Krista
Donna
came in.
Wilkes.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And of course, the production company spoiled the girls rotten and kind of ignored the adults. And I just thought, all right, it's a gig. It's a gig.
Hmm.
We did it for as long as we did it, and then it ended. And you go to work and you eat your lunch and you come home.
I heard you say when you were on Mark Maron's podcast a few years ago that Tom Dreesen was supposed to play Larry.
Cliff Gorman was the first one they thought they
Hmm.
were going to use. Then it wasn't Cliff Gorman. And then it was Tom Dreesen. I think we shot another pilot with Tom Dreesen.
Hmm.
And then they didn't want him. And then they got McLean Stevenson. And I'd have been happy with the other two guys because they
Yeah.
were, you know, but McLean was he wanted to go play golf. So he'd rehearse for like, an hour and then go play golf.
Yeah, a lot of those older guys did play golf in those days. But Tom, yeah, you would have had a much better time doing the entire series with him. He's such a class act gentleman. I love him.
Yeah, and a nice guy, nicer guy.
Much nicer guy. Yeah. You know how when you're a kid, you hear a song, and as you get older, every time you hear it, it takes you back to that moment in time when you first heard it.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
That happens to me with film and television. And you had a line in a Different Strokes episode that I never forgot. And to this day, whenever I see you in anything, heck, even talking to you now, I think about it. It's when Larry catches Morgan and Philip kissing, and like Morgan keeps like kissing Phil to like show what the difference between a peck on the cheek or a regular kiss, right?
Hmm.
And you
Hmm.
say, "Thank you, Phil. I had to make a point." I always remember that line.
What's so funny? I couldn't have come up with that line if you paid me $1 million.
Yeah, it's a great line. I remember you played Beaver's ex-wife in the new Leave It to Beaver pilot. How was that experience?
Oh, we don't even have to talk about that. Again, another gig, another money gig.
Yeah, I was just curious because
These are not my career highlights, Tom.
oh, I know, but it's just like my earliest, reference point for you was this stuff. I watched a
Yeah.
lot of television, a lot of sitcoms when I was a kid.
Hmm. Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, but we recently lost the great actor Tony Roberts, and you had a very funny brief scene with him in Hannah and Her Sisters. Do you have any
Yeah.
anecdotes about Tony?
Well, that was really my first film role, to play Tony's wife in Hannah and Her Sisters. And he and Mia were lovely, absolutely lovely and
Hmm.
welcoming and calming. To me, I really only had I had one scene. It was just
Yeah,
that scene,
yeah.
in that. And they made it very, very easy for me. And he was adorable. Tony was adorable.
Yeah, I loved him in Annie Hall. He keeps calling Woody Max throughout the movie. That was their code.
Yeah, yeah.
That was their code name because they didn't want to get recognized on the streets of New York, so they called each other Max.
Right, 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 right.
You know, I also love Crimes and Misdemeanors. I think it's
Another great film.
one of Woody's
Yeah.
best. Yeah, like
Yeah, it's a kind of a masterpiece. It really is.
yeah, like when he called you up for this, like were you surprised that he wanted you to play a much bigger role?
It's interesting because you don't really audition for him. His casting director, Juliet Taylor, says you should be Joanna Gleason for this. And I walked into his office for Hannah and Her Sisters. And he went, "Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in." And that was it. Because he
Hmm.
just has to look at you because
Yeah.
been sort of vetted. So for this one, I went back in. Woody wants to see you. I guess to see if you just sort of look the same or whatever. And I walked in. He said, "Nice to see you again." And I said, "Thank you. Great to see you." And then they said, "Okay, you've got it." Because she's not going to call in people that have to convince you that they're right for the role.
Yeah.
She already knew. Casting directors, they kind of already know. And so she would run us by Woody, and he was very pleasant. And he said, "Okay, great." And then we would play our scenes. No big drama, no big discussion. We had great cinematographers. Oh my God, Sven Nykvist was one, on Crimes and Misdemeanors.
Hmm.
Um, and the crew had worked with him so often that it was like a little family, and the hair and makeup ladies, and it was easy. It was just
Hmm.
easy, and I enjoyed it.
I know he's got that very interesting aesthetic of not talking to the actors and interacting with them. He knows exactly what he wants, and I mean, his movies are not special effects, driven. They're character driven, and just
Right.
basically, one short scene to the next of just dialogue. You know,
Yeah.
it's just it's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
interesting how he does that.
Yeah. And it's lovely because it's very much like theater in that he doesn't overcover, meaning he doesn't stop and go back and get tight close up here, tight close up there. I want another close up here. I want another close. The scenes really move like they do in life, like you see a lot of people in a scene talking, moving, going from room to room, and I like that. I particularly like that.
Yeah, it's like a play.
Yeah, very much.
And he rarely ever has music playing during the opening or ending credits. It's just he has a very distinctive style.
Hmm.
How was making FX2?
Um, it was fun. Brian Dennehy was lovely. Again, a lot of these things were. I was lucky to get the gig
Hmm.
and happy to be in them and working with good people. And I don't hang on. I don't scrapbook my career.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? I
yeah.
kind of just keep moving and go on to the next job.
Yeah, because the first one is such a brilliant thriller. This one was kind of unnecessary and it was much more comedic than the first. I mean,
Hmm.
in this one, there's a clown that looks like Pennywise from Stephen King's It, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
But
Yeah, yeah.
but I have to say, you were great in it. I love
Thank
how.
you.
Yeah, I love how you play this crooked lawyer that's kind of Dennehy's old flame, and
Yeah.
she's in cahoots with the bad guy. And the bad guy, of course, was the brilliant Philip Bosco, a New York theater
Oh,
legend.
I love, he's such a, he was one of the giants of the theater.
Yeah, did you ever work with him in theater?
No, no, I did not. I mean, so many of us know each other so well from just sort of being on the same campus for decades that you think, did I work with that person? I've been working for 50 years,
Yeah.
um, on and off in the theater. So you've either worked with or done a reading with or, a special event with, or you actually did do something with that. And after a while, you just go, I don't know if I worked with them or not, but I know them.
Did you shoot that up in Canada?
In Toronto, yeah.
In Toronto. Yeah, that's where you're from, right?
I was born there. Hmm.
Hmm. And you lived there until what, you were like 10 or something?
No, no, no. I lived there till I was 6. Then we came down to Mount Vernon, New York, then New Rochelle, New York, then Studio City, California, and then ended up in the house where my parents stayed for 55 years.
Do you do you have a lot of Canadian synchronicities?
I have family. I have a lot of family up there. Um, Still, I don't know what you mean by synchronicities.
Oh, like, are you a hockey fan and stuff like
Oh,
that?
no, 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 no. No, but I admire the talent that has come out of Canada. Um, like Catherine O'Hara and Martin Short. I mean,
Oh,
there are people who are just like legendary.
yeah. What is it that makes Canadians so funny? I mean, there's so many brilliant ones that come from there.
I know it could be something in the clean water.
I love the episode you did of The Outer Limits with Michael Gross. Anything stand out about that?
Just that there's a scene where they had a huge fan. It's called a ritter. The
Hmm.
the fan itself is about the size
Excuse me.
of a small house,
Hmm.
and it's not too. So that there was a storm, and then they were just blowing all this kind of stuff at you, and I was just like, whoa, this is intense. But again, these are gigs that I don't. It's not like I was in a play for 8 months or 15 months.
Hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? Or
Yeah.
a series for a couple of years. These are things that come and go. So you're reading about them,
Yeah.
and remembering them, and I go, oh yeah, I did that. I guess it was fun, but I don't have any lasting memories because I don't make any lasting relationships from those.
Yeah. You and Gross had great chemistry. It's like a mini film, in
Hmm.
45 minutes. And Leslie Stevens wrote that episode too.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's a cute little story. Do you remember working with Tracy Ullman on her show?
Well, I did a couple of episodes of the Tracy Ullman Show, and she is a bona fide genius.
Yes.
Just a bona fide genius. I think I did two. Um, and she's generous, and she's funny, and she's accessible, and I just think she's one of them. That was a blessing because it was nice to be around people so gifted.
That Age episode is hilarious. Austin Pendleton's like a Steve Jobs.
No, he's like Stephen Hawking.
Stephen Hawking, that's right. I'm sorry, Stephen Hawking. Yeah, he's in
Yeah.
a wheelchair and he's got a computer voice, and you have that great line. Bye, darling. I left you 3 suppositories. The pink one is dessert.
Right, 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 right.
That's so brilliant. I gotta tell you, Joanna, I worked in the bar business for 7 years, and you're one of two actors that I've talked to that pulled off drunk very well. Ileana
Well, thank
Douglas
you.
was the first one in Cape Fear, and then you and Boogie Nights. Yeah, I mean, I
Oh, thank you.
I think you should have gotten an Oscar nomination for that scene, even though you're only on screen for like 2 minutes. It's mesmerizing. How did you
Thank
get?
you.
How did you get to that
Well,
place?
I auditioned for it, and it's not
Hmm.
anything like anything I had done. I was mostly a comedy and musical theater girl and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And Paul Thomas Anderson's people brought me in, and I auditioned. I read that scene for him, and they gave it to me, and I thought this is a chance to just do something that they don't expect, something that I know I can do, and the script is so solid and so good that I just let loose, and it was very freeing.
Yeah, I mean, God, I've seen a lot of women play narcissistic, drunk, jealous mothers, but God,
Mm-hmm.
that was just like so out of left field. I when I watch it, sometimes I forget that's even you. I mean,
Oh, that's
it's
great. That's great.
yeah, it's such a character, like a real character.
Yeah, I'm proud of that piece of work.
Yeah. When you saw the movie put together and there's that big, reveal at the end, when he's looking in the mirror, like, did that catch you off guard? Did you know that was going to happen?
I have to tell you, I never saw the movie all the way through.
Really? It's
I
just,
don't, I don't, I don't tend to watch things that I'm in.
okay. Yeah,
Um,
it's a great movie.
I will watch the whole thing someday.
Yeah, it's very Altman-esque. It's a great ensemble piece. It's just a
Hmm.
great movie overall. So, how did you meet your husband, Chris Sarandon?
We were doing the ill-fated musical Nick and Nora, based on the Thin Man movies
Hmm.
of William Powell and Myrna Loy. And Arthur Lawrence said, "There's an actor I want to play your love interest." Not I was playing Nora. Barry Bostwick was playing Nick.
Hmm.
Charles Strauss and Richard Maltby did the score. And he said, I have to cast this part of a guy who flirts with Nora. And he said, "Come meet Chris Sarandon. I'm having dinner with him." And I met him. I had met him years ago at a dinner party. We were each married to other people, and it was fine, fine. No, nothing untoward, nothing out of the ordinary. And I met him, and we started rehearsals. And by that time, I was separated, and so was he. It was years later.
Hmm.
And I thought, I don't know what it is about this guy, but I have a show to do. We have this big musical to do, and I can't start thinking about, being involved with anybody. And yet, the whole company saw that he and I were sort of meant to be together. And it's been 34 years, so they were right.
Oh, yeah, I met him in 2019 at Monster Palooza in Pasadena, and he was so
Hmm.
sweet. I,
He's a very, very wonderful guy.
I told him he was the greatest living American actor, and he said, "Thank you, Tommy. I appreciate that."
Yeah, well, it's a lovely thing to say. He is a brilliant actor.
He is. What are some of your favorite like movie roles of his?
Oh, definitely Dog Day Afternoon,
Yeah.
and The Princess Bride, I would say, and just tons and tons of them. But those two are up at the top.
Mine are like Dog Day Afternoon. He did this little underrated comedy with Goldie Hawn called Protocol.
Oh
Um,
yeah, he's adorable in that. Yeah, it's a sweet movie.
yeah, he's very laid back and comedic in it.
Hmm.
I love it. And of
Hmm.
course, Fright Night. He is so creepy and
Fright Night,
menacing.
best vampire ever.
Yes, he's just so bone chillingly creepy in that. And he signed my Fright Night poster when I met him. So,
Cool, cool, cool.
what was it like working with Bostwick?
Oh, a doll. Actually, Barry
Hmm.
was very much into pottery. He was a wonderful potter, and he made me, and I still have this. Um, he made me this wonderful kind of like sugar jar. It's gorgeous and
Hmm.
green with a beautiful glaze on it with a lid. I still have it. We knew that we were in something that wasn't working because Arthur Lawrence was impossible and he wouldn't edit, and he also directed it, and he didn't direct it well, and he wouldn't listen to the producers, and everybody was fighting. All the creatives were fighting, and we had this a splendid cast of fantastic people. Songs kept changing, things kept getting cut, and Arthur wouldn't listen to anybody, and so it tanked, and it was a very bad experience. On the other hand, part of me didn't give a rat's ass because I was falling in love with Chris.
Yeah, I met Barry at a convention too, and he went to the same high school I did. And I told him that, and I told him I never got to beat the rival football team, and he said, "Oh, Tommy, you are a big disappointment."
Funny, funny. He's a lovely guy.
Very lovely guy. Yeah. So I heard you say recently you're writing your memoir. How far along are you?
I'm about a third of the way in, but there's you have to write too much and then decide what is and what isn't your book.
Yeah.
So I'm just not censoring myself yet. I'm just hard at it. And it's not all showbiz stuff. It's more interesting that it isn't all showbiz stuff. It's more about who I was at the time I was doing stuff,
Yeah.
but a lot about my growing up, a lot about my youth and my parents and stuff like that.
Yeah, I can imagine. You're probably going to go into the story that you told on Marin about your mom's passing. That was so sad and so deep.
Oh, I know, I know, and it's just about the anniversary of her death. It's been 8 years, and I can't believe it's been 8 years that she's gone. Because
Yeah.
she's kind of with me a lot. She's with me a lot.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, and she shows up in places in the lights, as she said she would. And yeah, I lost them so close together. Dad died in September. She died in June. He died in September.
God.
And it was quite an experience.
My grandmother is with me every day. She died right in front of me when I was 18, and it was
Oh man.
traumatic, traumatic.
Yeah.
And there's been years and there's been times where like the grieving process has gotten better, and then sometimes there's always that one thing where everything
Yeah.
triggers. You know,
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the thing. It's that memory is on a loop, and it'll either be right in front of you or it's somewhere in the back of your mind and something will bring it forward and you just go, "Oh, here it is again." Like, okay. Here we go.
yeah, and of course you got these great acting roles to bring your own personal experience to, and also kind of forget about that stuff for a little while, and be focused on what you got to do.
Well, it's not about the work that takes you out of grief. It's your family and your friends who get you through because everybody's been through something like this. So you get to talk about it. You get to laugh about it. You know that they know what you're talking about. And I'm much more healed and fortified by my relationships than I am by work.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful words of wisdom, Joanna. I thank you so much for coming on today on my eighth
Well, thank you,
anniversary.
Tommy. Thank you. I'm glad we finally did this. Thank you so much.
Yes, I look forward to seeing the Grotto when it's finally out, and I'd
Yay.
love for you to come back on when the book is out.
Oh, I absolutely will. So hang on, and then it should be. I'd love to finish it by the end of this year.
Awesome. You be safe out there and keep those, gorgeous eyes delighting people.
Thank you, Tommy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Take care.
Well, there you have it. Joanna Gleason, ain't she a sweetheart? Oh my God, what a great lady! And those were great. Those were great little anecdotes she had, and I'm so glad that we got to talk a little bit about grief there at the end and stuff, and talk about something so humane that way. I mean, I've been thinking about my grandmother an awful lot lately because it's been 23 years since my grandmother passed, and she's just on my mind a lot because I can't believe it's been that long. And talking to Joanna right now about it was just fantastic. She was a great eighth anniversary guest. I'm so blessed. Thank you, God. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.